Okay, everyone. Hello. Hey. For those who don't know me, I'm Dia. I'm part of the X26 organizing committee, I guess, if that's a formal role. So to just give you a brief intro for those who don't know, we're here with Snyder, who I'll get to introduce himself shortly. But X26 is essentially a community for people who are both ex-McKinsey and current McKinsey, and helping them, empowering them to become founders, but also work in startups and also the investment world. So knowledge sharing, connectivity, and capital, the three points, and a class of McKinsey zones. And we are hosted by the lovely Perpetual, and I'll get them to do a short kind of summary of their work as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Will. I'm the marketing guy here at Perpetual, so it only makes sense that I give you guys the rundown about us. So we're a digital product design and development agency, and we're an acceleration partner. So we've worked with over 30 plus startups, and we also work with enterprise companies as well. We take a UX-led approach, so that's a little bit more about us. Here are some of the startup companies. Maybe you guys recognize some of them. Over 10 billion in combined valuation, 3 acquisitions and 2 IPOs, so we have a great track record. And here are some of our startup services, so specifically for startups, if you need like a virtual CTO, DevOps, growth hacking, we got you covered. And without further ado, I'm gonna let Rob introduce himself because that's who you're all here to see.
Cool. So yeah, I'm Rob. I was a McKinsey BA in Cleveland from 2013 to 2015, 8 years, arguably the best years in McKinsey's history, unfortunately. Then I went to Harvard, and then I went into venture-backed startups for a while, and now I do some bootstrap startups. I spent 2 years after business school just hitting my head against the wall after raising some money, and then we did a Hail Mary pivot, went 0 to 4 million ARR in the next 2 years. And so my experience from that was that coming out of HBS and McKinsey, I was like uniquely unqualified to start a startup and like figure out the early stage. And so I think now I've figured out how the early stage works and hopefully can be a little helpful to you. Over the past 15 months, I've taken 10 companies from 0 to 1 million ARR in some capacity as either a fractional executive, direct advisor, something like that. That is out of 12 total. 1 failed after 2 weeks. I don't think I caused that, but that'd be really fast. And then 1, I'm still just, I'm determined to figure it out, but I haven't yet. So, and I run a product market boot camp, Fit Boot Camp. You can find out more about that online. So, I've gotten wildly obsessed with how the early stage works and how product market fit specifically works. And I think there's a good reason for that, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. The reason, and this is like a very common experience that I've seen, this is the specific story of a friend who's a Stanford MBA, intern or TA for like all of the entrepreneurship classes, kind of our kind of person. So he raised a bunch of money, then went through like months of ideation, made some really cool spreadsheets and PowerPoints, did a bunch of assumptions, validation. I'm realizing how small this actually is, so I'm sorry. I'll say it out loud. Then did a bunch of experiments and basically ran a bunch of experiments, got a ton of false positive signals. Built their MVP off of false positive signals, tried to sell it, nobody cared. So they did what everyone else does and pivot. So then they're like, okay, shit, we're gonna do it right this time. And so they did over 100 customer discovery interviews, doing it right, following the mom test. In those customer interviews, I saw in the spreadsheet, they had them force rank their pain points across a couple different vectors, and they found 1 pain point that everyone put as like 9 out of 10. So it's like, cool, validated. And so then they built their product, this time for 9 months alongside their design partners. And what happens? Tried to sell it to them, and what happened? Didn't want to pay for it. Yes, exactly. So, nobody willing to pay, and so they're sitting there saying, what the hell happens now? So, this is like super common. This is the pain cave. You can call it purgatory. You can call it whatever you want. This is awful. Fun story. I actually like started working with him. I don't know, like 3 months ago. They've gone from 0 to 200K ARR in the past 2 months after this was 15 months of just head hitting the wall. And so I'll just like walk you through how I think about this kind of stuff. So my central argument here, again, small text. Product market fit is like the most important thing, we all know that. But it is a super ambiguous concept, and that doesn't help. Like all the best practices about product market fit, because this concept is so mystical and abstract, they're basically useless. Like make something people want, cool, like what are you gonna do with that? They're non-falsifiable, they're overwhelming, right? Like you've seen all the like 78-step processes for product market fit. And there's a bunch of other ones that are like fictional stories or semi-fictional stories of people who are nothing like us. So like the people who like slept on couches for like 6 years and then did like yoga for whatever and then built, I don't know, like those people, I just don't know those people and they're nothing like me. And so we have to understand how product market fit works from like a fundamental systems mechanical level in order to be able to know what's important or not. And nobody has done this work, so this is kind of what I've been obsessed with over the past 10 years. And so I think it all breaks that down into 2 different models. One is like, how does the system work at its very core? How does product market fit actually work, and how should you think about it? And then like, what's the process by which you find product market fit and get closer and closer to this thing? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you're anything like me, like when you're starting out, there's a million things that seem important, and the existential dread of that and the weight of that is like exhausting. Hopefully with these 2 models, like you can actually get rid of that and just kind of execute, because it is ultimately like simpler than we think. So cool, good to jump into these. Good talks, sweet. Okay. First, mechanics of product market fit. This is a really good graphic that some friends made. The way to think about product market fit is the ability to replicate a single customer case study. You have a single customer case study and you can replicate it. They all kind of look the same. Let's dig into that deeper though. So think of it as a simple system. What is a customer case study? Well, it's the journey of one real customer in a case study from prospective customer to actual customer to successful customer, when we define success as, if you're in B2B, like they don't churn, they renew, they upsell, they whatever. If you're B2C, it's usually something like repeat purchase, or at least like not returning the product, but I kind of want something that's better. And so like this, so the journey of one real customer all the way through this is the case study, and this is the model. And all we do is we just clone that. We just repeat that as much as humanly possible 1 million times. This is like, we're gonna double click into this in a second, but this is the fundamental model for product market fit. You're gonna wanna ask, and these are really, okay, I will share this after too. There's some questions that you probably have as you look at this, and these help you like understand. I'll just read them out. There's a reason why this is based on a real customer and not a persona. There's a reason why this is one person. There's one case study and not 2. There's a reason that product market fit isn't just about top line growth, it's about retention and success. And there's a reason I say you clone a case study versus, and that's a different thing to say than sell the same thing to the same niche. Those are 2, they sound very similar, but they're actually very, very different. And there's a reason I don't talk about product or service at this level. So before we like move on, any questions on this, or we can take a little bit more Q&A a little later, but the fundamental model is repeat a single case study as much as humanly possible. Okay, we're gonna dig in here. When you zoom in on this case study, there's something that's actually really, really important when you click deeper, and it is what happens between them being a prospective customer and an actual customer, and an actual customer and a successful customer. And it's like, what's the force that happens that gets them from one stage to the next? There's a lot of it where it's like us pushing, us doing a ton of work, begging them to show up to the second meeting in a sales call. Like, there's a ton of us trying to do convincing. As you, like, to get closer to product market fit, you want them to pull the next step. You want them to pull more than you're pushing. So, to ask, like, what's worth asking yourself here? Why does this matter? Why does pull versus push matter? And how does pull work? These are things that, like, we tend to think we know, but I've found, like, I've gone really, really deep on, like, why do customers pull? And it's like, it's actually, like, fairly counterintuitive. Okay, so to understand pull, we're gonna jump into this. I'll also say, just as an aside, I've never given a presentation in under an hour. And so I'm trying to condense this all into 20 minutes with Q&A. And so we're gonna keep rocking, but then there'll be plenty of time for Q&A, I'll hang out. Okay, so to understand pull is the most important thing in this, because if they pull more than you push, what happens? Like, it's bought more than it's sold. People, like, you do less effort, you need less skill on your team. Like, the system just works faster and better. So, to figure out pull, to understand pull, what we have to do is we have to stop looking at this case study from our point of view. We have to look at it from the customer's point of view and understand why would they move forward? Why would they pull versus us push? And so, when we look at it from the customer's point of view, the case study looks a little bit different, right? It actually looks like this person had to accomplish something in their actual job that we had no control over. They had some project, they had some goal, they had something. They had a reason why they had to accomplish this out of the million different things they could possibly accomplish. They didn't just, like, wake up one morning and say, you know what, today is a great day to buy enterprise software. Let me just go out and, wow, I got this cold email, let me see, right? And so they had a project to accomplish. There was a reason why they had to accomplish this versus everything else they could possibly accomplish. They considered a couple different options to accomplish that project. And then, right, they had success in their mind. What does success look like to them? All of that is stuff that we don't control, which makes the things that we do control, right? Like, how did they accomplish that? How did we help? And what did they actually buy from us? What did they pay? What was the value of it? All that. All the pull comes from this side, and understanding this side, and tying what we're selling and what we're offering and what we're delivering into the demand side. I'm sure there'll be questions on that. We will come back to that. This kind of pull is found, again, in their world. It is not, there's nothing inherent in your product or your service that causes customers to pull. It's all about them. So, right, nobody wakes up and says, yes, today's the day I get to buy new enterprise software. That never happens. It also never happens that someone says, wow, you have a really interesting value prop. Let me drop all of my goals and projects to, like, buy your product. That just, like, fundamentally doesn't happen. And so, like, it's, like, actually quite simple. For MOOC Test, you might have met Yvonne and Renan, they were here earlier. They're the reason I'm in New York. Their story is that they sell QA automation software and services to CTOs. They find that their sales go really fast because usually CTOs are like, I need to get QA off of my plate. We've just had a massive bug, a massive outage. I don't want to have to think about this. I have a huge product roadmap. And so these CTOs are thinking about hiring a dedicated QA team, maybe outsourcing something, and then they come in with a third option, which is leveraging AI, and it's, like, cheaper than the other options. And so what they found is that CTOs, like, desperately want to get QA off their plate, and so they can position in that realm. And so if they went and said, hey, we're a QA automation service, like, right, like we're the fastest QA automation service in the world, no one would care. But when they position it like this, when they talk like this, and I'll show you how they talk like this in a second, customers come to them and they're like, oh my God, thank you so much, just get this off of my plate. Okay, so that's model one. Cool if we stop here for like a minute or two of questions? Yeah, cool, okay. Because I'm quite sure that I just ran through that. So what questions do we have largely on Polar or the case study model?
Yeah. How do you figure out if you have pull? Because somebody just spent time talking to 100 customers and they thought they had pull, and then it was a false positive.
Yeah.
And so really, like, how do you know if there's pull or not without just like shots on goal?
Yeah, we're gonna come to that in part two, which is like, how do you find pull? Yeah. Yes?
I think you mentioned that selling the same product to a niche is different than repeating a case study.
Yeah.
Could you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. Think about what market do you sell to?
Crypto?
Crypto, okay. So let's say you sell to a bunch of different crypto companies, right? Crypto companies are a niche, right? You could sell the same product to the same niche. But if they're not trying to accomplish the same thing with it, if they don't have the same project in their mind, then they're all gonna have different expectations out of the product. And so repeating a case study is all about the end-to-end. They have to accomplish something. They had a certain problem. It all has to fit together, versus just selling a product to a niche, right? Like, what you'll find is you'll get a ton of different support requests that are all in different directions. Your CS, like, is going to be hard. It's going to be hard to forecast who's going to turn and who isn't. And so the case study model is a way to constrain kind of like all variables.
That makes sense. I think one thing that, like, I guess I've heard on one hand of selling the same persona, but that also felt very different, at least in our process, than repeating the same case study.
Yeah.
Because the latter felt very, like, much more actionable and much more clear, because I guess it's harder to even define what the persona is. But I don't know if you think, like, that was something that came to us, but I don't know if you think about that in a different way.
Yeah, no. Like, there's a reason I don't talk about personas. I'm not going to go all the way back there. That was one of the questions in there, which is like, there's a reason I talk about individual customers and not personas. There's this like weird thing that happens when we think about personas or when we think about groups of people, which is we just wind up designing for ourselves or talking to ourselves. You can literally only build something people want if you focus on one human being, not some abstraction. You can eventually get to an abstraction from like individual people, but you can't get from like a theoretical abstraction down to a real person. So that's why, like, if you see startups or if you see marketing out there that like, it's like, that is this cringiest like stuff that doesn't resonate, like car commercials, right? Those are designed for personas. I think.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know when folks are starting to like get their first customer and stuff, a lot of times it's to another startup
Yeah.
versus a bigger company, and you're obviously talking about like B2B sales. So how does that translate exactly? If it's like, okay, my case study is somebody who's working at like an early stage startup, they're having this kind of problem.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that'll translate to somebody at a much company.
Yeah, like we'll run through like how you figure out the target market and like where the case study resonates and actually what shape should the case study take. Because like if you were to go right now and just like spend 10 minutes trying to write out a case study, you start to realize, wait a second, I could write like 30 pages on, and I don't know what one page of those 30 pages actually are the relevant points. And so there's a way to figure all of that out. Now, like, I tend to say, like, try to sell to the kind of customer you actually want to sell to versus selling to just other startups. But yeah, we can go deeper into that. Cool. We keep rolling? Sweet. Okay. Okay, so how do you find product market fit? So now we know kind of like how it works as a system. Now we have to figure out how do we get to that system and what's the process for getting there. Okay, so what I've found is there's a ton of different advice about how to find product market fit. If you think of it as repeating a case study, then all you have to do is just try to repeat a case study. And it's like, you do that by selling and delivering. This is why you can do 100 customer interviews, get 9 out of 10 pain points, and then go try to sell it to them eventually, and they're like, actually, I don't want to buy it. Right? The only way to find product market fit in practice is to sell and deliver. Not through research, analysis, discovery, experimentation, or vision exercises or whatever. Okay, so here's the next level of this, which is, if you're finding product market fit by trying to replicate a case study, there's a Gordian knot here. The way to try to replicate a case study is to use the case study. You literally use the case study as your sales and delivery process. You just show the case study, say, is this you? Is this what you want? How are you different? I'm not kidding, it is this simple. And then as you show it to people and they react to it, they buy or they don't buy, they say weird things that you're not expecting, that gives you a hint of how to debug the case study so that it can get to pull. So this is MoveTest. MoveTest has a 5-slide sales demo. They went from 700K to $1 million ARR last year on these slides and almost nothing else. And so it's literally just take that case study framework, and I know you all can do this really well, make slides, make slides out of it. And then you have a conversation with the customer that doesn't feel like you're trying to sell to them, doesn't feel like you're sitting across the table saying hey, will you buy my product? Is what I'm building pretty? It doesn't feel like that. It feels like you're sitting on the same side of the table, looking at the case study and saying, hey, I don't know if you're a good fit here. You tell me where you're different. And you just structure it when our customers come to us, they're typically trying to achieve this kind of thing, maybe this kind of thing. What are you trying to achieve? Okay. The reason why they come to us is because the reason they have to accomplish this versus all the other things they could be doing is this, and this happen. How is that different for you? Okay, when they come to us trying to accomplish this, after this has happened, they typically think of 3 different approaches. This one, this one, this one. How have you thought about your different options? Okay, cool. When this company came to us, did this, they chose option 3, and this is what success looked like to them, and this was the path there. Is that the kind of path to success that you want? And so it's kind of like a guided conversation through there. And by the way, you could stop there, and you don't mention your product once. You usually get there, and they say, yeah, how did they do that? How did they do that? And that's them pulling on learning about your product and service. And you select, okay, so here's how we help them, and here's what they bought. And yeah.
Sorry, isn't one of the options your solution?
No. So one of the options, so for MoveTest, for example, it is, project is get QA off my plate. The reason, bugs. The options are hire people, use no-code tools, or consider an AI solution. It's not us as an option. What we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out think of it as they have a project, what are the 3 different archetypes of project plans they would take so that they can make trade-offs across those.
No, you say archetype, my McKinsey brain is working.
There we go. Had to go up to the
That was the unlock.
There we go. Yeah, other questions on this? So if there is a cheat code in the world, this is the cheat code to the early stage. It is crazy. So what happens though is you show this to people, and you don't get hell yeses from the start. I've been starting my new company. I've done 10, 20 demos so far, and the first 5 awkward, just totally awkward. I was speaking a totally different language. That's normal. By 5, I actually started figuring out, okay, here's the language. Here's what they're really trying to achieve. And I keep getting weird questions throughout, and so as I keep getting weird questions throughout, or people ghosting me or whatever, I go back and I think, I'm like, okay, something about the case study is not quite right. I need to debug it. I need to debug it and get to pull on every single slide, every single word, every single interaction. And so that's kind of what I want to do. And as you do that, this is my last company. These are different case studies, top to bottom. I wouldn't even try the glasses. As we debugged the case study, the business, like we would change one thing and be like, okay, this thing now works, but now the whole case study doesn't make sense, like as a coherent thing. And so we had to rewrite the entire case study, and when we rewrote the entire case study, we were like, this isn't the same thing that we were just selling. And so this is how businesses unfold. This is how you go from something that doesn't work to something that actually really does work. This is how you change target market sizes. Like, this is the unfolding process. It's a process of compounding. And so as you debug the case study, you actually figure out emergent properties from that are like, what is your target market? What is your competition? What are the real alternatives to them? And what should you deliver? All of that emerges from this case study, and it emerges as you interact with customers through the sales and delivery process.
Sorry, quick question.
Yeah.
Talk a bit more about the results apart from the case study before. Like, what do you actually cover in the results if you haven't introduced your solution yet?
Yeah. So results are really interesting. So if you think about the product, I want to get QA off of my plate. What are results that that person would actually want to accomplish that product? Not what does our product do, the results. What they want to see, and what we show here, is like they have a test suite. They have more tests covered, and their test runs fast, and it didn't take the team a bunch of time. So it's how do you complete the project? Like, how do they know they're on the path to complete the project? How do you visualize the results they get?
Rob, I'd like to just understand the debugging aspect. Like, can you give an example of like what you went through? Because I'm just trying to understand like what you're trying to get to actually.
So you're just trying to get to hell yes on every slide and on every piece of it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you can see into my soul. You've been listening in our conference rooms. People say that, and that's where you want to get to. But like, okay, so my example, I got to $1 million ARR on the wrong product. And the reason I found out it was the wrong product is because I onboarded our first 300 customers one-on-one. And as I onboard them, they'd always say something interesting, which was, I hate that I have to pay you for this. I don't want to pay you for me to hire new employees. I want to pay you to retain the employees I already have. Well, shit. And so I built a very simple employee retention product, and that's what got us from 1 to 4. And so the case study, right? Like that's actually from here, or that's lower down on here. But basically, it was like we got to $1 million on that, selling that, but that's not really what they wanted to. That wasn't their real project. The real project was help me retain the employees I already have. And so when I made that change, obviously everything else, or actually no, not everything else changed, right? The who, the when, and the why, like those things didn't change. But like basically everything else changed about the business. And we started emphasizing that more because we knew that's what they would actually pull. And when we did that, like we got to 4 million on 60% word of mouth referral. And so like that's kind of like the power of that. That's how you know that you have something to pull up.
So you sunsetted the first one and built a whole new different one?
No, we bundled.
Or it was just like a rephrasing of words?
We bundled the products together and led with the retention one. And then like over time, nobody cared about that one. Yeah.
You said the idea is to do the case study, which is a real customer, as opposed to, right, like thinking through the same way the Stanford MBA did.
Yeah.
Are you implying that in the beginning you're selling vaporware to get to that first product, you're creating this whole setup, these 5 slides, without actually having the product and then iterating that way?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, like most people find me when they have a product that they've been building for like 9 to 12 months. And so But yeah, for like my next startup, I have an open source like library of like I have an open source product that is like quite janky, and I'm using that as like part of the case study. But I don't have a product to sell yet, and so honestly, it's like really helpful because I don't have that product in the back of my head, and I can figure out who, when, why, like what is the shape of the opportunity here really, so that I can actually build the right thing.
What happens if they buy?
You figure it out. Like so.
That's a good problem.
It's a good problem, and like there's so many things you can do. Yeah, that like when you get to that point, like we'll talk. But like what I've done before is awesome, great. We're actually scheduling onboardings for like August right now. There's a lot of demand for this. Scheduling onboarding for August. So how is August 5th for a kickoff call?
Yeah.
Do you check your schedule now, or you just try to like not panic? Yeah.
What happens with the lot that do you refine it?
Sorry, I missed that.
Does it happen a lot, or what do you do when after refining the case study,
Yeah.
the opportunity is just too small?
What you tend to find is as you refine the case study and as you like deeply resonate with people come in who aren't quite perfect fits for the case study. And that's where you figure out what the real market opportunity is and you tweak the case study slightly, or you might say, okay, we got to 5 million ARR on one case study, but we're seeing another case study emerging in the process. So all of this happens in line. It's not something that you go off and do like a research project on or a whiteboarding session on. So,
Do you have any examples from your experience on like very, very horizontal products? So like more like tech infrastructure, where like there can be a million possible case studies, because obviously it's like you could go after one specific use case.
Yeah.
But then from our experience, feels like there's a risk of just becoming like super specialized in like a particular vertical or problem, and then it's that the path to then becoming truly horizontal becomes less clear. So I'm just curious how this translates there.
yeah, so I worked with a company out of Germany. I think they actually might have been an expert. But they're called Levity. They were a horizontal AI workflow product 2 years ago. So it was a little cooler then. But what they found is they had a bunch of users across, like on a very low price plans across this horizontal tool. And in that, they found that they had like 4 different case studies that they could go off and try to repeat. And so they still kept the like PLG style open sign-up motion open to like have that be kind of like the serendipity engine for figuring out what are the kind of like use cases, what are the case studies that they could possibly repeat. But they put all of their effort behind one for outbound and for like all of their growth motion behind one case study. And that's kind of how they got to their first couple million. And so like you can keep the horizontal open, but to actually be able to repeat something, you tend to need to focus on a list of 500 customers or something like that.
And that makes sense. That makes one follow up. Do you see this model working well in the if you go to a company with like there's potentially like 5 possible use cases or case studies, and actually like instead of having this one full focus on one case study, it's like we know we serve these 5 use cases, and then which one is the best fit for you?
Yeah. So what people often ask that you always wind up getting to one. You always whatever path you want to take to one is your business. But what people often do is like at the very beginning of the slide deck is say people often have these different projects when they talk to us. And actually that's a really good way to weigh them against each other, because I had a company just do that, and the one that they thought was the like real project that people had, everyone's like, yeah, that's interesting, but this one, if you can help me retain my sales hires, like, tell me more about that. And so that was just interesting. Cool, okay, I just got like a couple more slides and then we can jump into Q&A. I'm sure I'm 40 minutes over already. Okay, so like I have 3 slides of implications. First, epistemic. All that matters is finding your replicable case study by selling and delivering. That's all that matters, that's all you have to do. any case study you currently have, or any one that you kind of like make up in theory, is wrong. And this is why research and validation and all of that stuff and experimentation doesn't work, because there's a class of knowledge you can only find when you ask somebody to give you money. Have to do it by selling it. There's no other way. You can waste years doing other stuff. This is all unpredictable. Your business will take some weird ass shape because of this. As a result, it's just how it works. Some tactical implications: 0 to 10 customers. Make it happen by any means possible. You're all McKinsey folks, so you're going to want to have all 10 of those be hell yes perfect case studies. If they're not, 2 will hate you. Just embrace it. Always happens. 6 will be kind of indifferent. 2 will be hell yes, and you want to design around those 2. 100K to $1 million ARR, you're going to want to broaden. You actually should narrow and focus on making the case study designed around the customers who pull the hardest and the situations in which they pull the hardest. Try to avoid broadening as much as possible. And when you feel stuck, ask, are we designing for one hell yes customer? Are we designing around one real person, hell yes case study? Are we focused on the go-to-market process? Are we focused on learning through the go-to-market process, or are we doing a bunch of LARPing off on the side? And then are we doubling down on what works versus trying to figure out new things? Always try to double. If anything works, just do more. Okay. 2 last existential implications. We can't know stuff in advance. Smart people try to pretend we can, but we can't. And then nobody cares about you, your product, your goals, your company, your vision, or anything like that. They care about themselves. Serve them how they want to be served, not how you think they should want to be served. So that's all. Thank you. Is that helpful?
Yeah, so like imagine you heed the warning and you don't spend 9 months building something that nobody wants or that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But then I feel like there's a catch-22 where you need a case study to sell, but you don't have one and you don't have any customers.
Yep.
It seems like I don't want to think that the best answer is just to take a leap of faith and to do something, to just justify. So I don't know how you think about that issue.
Yeah, you need to start with something, right? Like, and so what I typically start with is like, who do I want to serve? I go find somebody and be like, so my next business is in like the SOC 2 compliance space. Don't have an actual case study, I have a theoretical case study. And the way I did that was I went and talked to people who had gone through the SOC 2 process. And I talked about the projects that they had along that journey and designed it around that. And just created a third option in that. And that's how I found it.
So where's the result slide from?
My ass.
Source of insight.
Yeah.
I'm kind of where your previous business was, where I have a company I've been running for 2 years. We're close to $1 million, but we have like 4 or 5 case studies. And I'm like, shit, this is like growing really slowly.
Yeah.
I need to figure out what's our one case study. I'm going and talking to people, and then they'll say something along the lines of like, this all makes sense in practice. Show me like a demo or pricing.
Yeah.
And after 2 years of building, I just do not want to build more stuff.
Yeah.
How do you know, like when people are asking about pricing, or I'll believe it when I see it? Like how do you like, do I go and do more case studies until I get enough people who are like asking me about pricing, or do I just like try to make this one person who's asking me about pricing and like spend the next 2 months building something for them?
Okay, so like in that exact situation, what I've seen before work is instead of going out and trying to like come up with some new case study, look at the customers who bought really fast for weird reasons and figure out what those weird reasons are, because those are often projects that tell you where real demand is. Yeah, and then like design a case study around that. If you need to build a new product, like usually you don't need to build a new product. Usually you just need to find the one case study that's in what you have, that's like, there's like a bunch of kind of like people who kind of had demand, but you kind of had to twist their arm, and there's a couple people in there who like bought really fast. I would try to figure out why that is first, and go after that before building other products.
I think there are actually good reasons to want to build another product. You realize like you're selling into a shitty market, like people who don't have budget or stuff like that, and you just like force your way through.
Yeah.
You do actually need to build another product.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so then what goes a long way are like, I don't know, what are they called? Mock-ups. Like, so I know a lot of companies who have just recorded like Loom videos of them clicking through Figma and said, let me just send you across the like product walkthrough. That can get you far enough. And then like get them to put money down. Yeah. You know. Yeah.
The product I'm building is like the S&P space, so like a contract value is a couple $1,000s a year.
Yeah.
Is there anything different or like specific about that space that you would want to kind of share a bit more about? It sounds like you've built something in that.
Yeah. So I sold to like franchise restaurants for quite a while, and like we just had a 4-slide sales deck. It's not a ton different. Like they're harder to get on Zoom calls, and so you might have to like do this over the phone. But I recommend following the structure regardless. And usually you can get it in one call close. Like that's kind of how I designed it. Is like how do you design a conversation where they understand all the different pieces? It like starts from where they are, gets to where they want to go, and is a no-brainer offer at the end. And you can usually do that in one call. Initially, like as you figure it, like it'll take like 4 calls for your first like couple customers, but then like over time you love it. Yeah, but no, it's the same. Enterprise is also relatively similar too. The difference with enterprise, like 100K plus contracts, is that you do a case study for call 1 to get your champion, and then you create a very detailed project plan with the champion that is different for like every single company based on whose fee you have to kiss.
Do you find in that last this sort of enterprise 100K plus contracts, do you find that if you find the right case study, this need for like free trial POC type thing falls away, or that's just a feature of enterprise B2B in most cases, even if you have a great case study?
Yeah, so depends. What I've actually seen in ex-McKinsey Cleveland guy told me this. He went and did enterprise sales for a startup from a couple million to like 50 million or something like that. And what they found is that enterprise buyers had a really hard time buying software. And it's just like a very long and complicated process. So he sold them a consulting project to help them buy the software. And that like worked actually quite well. And that made a very quick sales process for them. So sometimes it's like just sell the thing that they can buy really fast, and then like bundle the thing you want to sell. So, all right, well, I'll chill around. Thanks everyone. It's fun.